Hello. Hi, everybody. Wow. How awesome is it to start a class and already have people in the lobby chit-chatting? It's exactly like what I would experience when I taught in person. So I love it so much. Hey, everybody. Welcome to day 1 of our childbirth class series. I am so excited to have you here. I'm excited to talk about our topics today, meet our class members in the chat, and just really spend a good solid hour talking about my favorite topic, which is childbirth. And really what I'm hoping for you guys is that at the end of the series, if you join me every night from March 1st to March 14th, that you will feel and you will have received a full childbirth series. Now, of course, it looks a little different. You're in the comfort of your home, probably. I'm in my office here in Seattle, and we aren't necessarily having the ability to mingle with each other and meet each other, but I'd love to meet you in the chat. So it's a great time for you to get to know the chat, jump in the chat. So my first ask of you is to say hello in the chat. And I already see so many names. I see some familiar names. I see Tara. I see Alexis and Chloe and Kayana, Maria too, Shirley. I hope I'm pronouncing these right. You guys, Natalie, Valerie, Lou, hello to all of you. If you'd like to share where you're watching it, how you found out about the class. Hello to Ashley, hello to Dawn. Anything you want to share in the chat is great. What I have found, this is my second time teaching a full childbirth series here on YouTube. And what I have found is that the people that are the most interactive in the chat really get the most takeaways from the class and feel like they have the best class experience and get the most knowledge from it. So, and have fun too. So, hello, Christina. Hello, Killian. Hello, Chris. Hello, are you 26261? Welcome back for round 2. I love it. So I see some familiar faces that were also in the December class, which is great. So a couple things. As just normal, if you were in my classroom right now, I want to start off just by giving some housekeeping information, just kind of let you know what to expect over the next hour and the next 13 days ahead of us. So I really want to bring each night, or I will be bringing each night, a topic about really how birth works. So tonight we're going to talk about the cervix, which is really exciting. And we are going to spend probably over half of the class really diving into what I call how birth works. So it's a lot of things that you would find in a traditional childbirth class. We'll cover anatomy and physiology and intervention and all those kind of stuff, pain management strategies. And then I like to spend a good half or third of the rest of the class really filling your toolbox with strategies. And I had a great question I thought I should just answer immediately. Someone asked me, well, I know I'm planning on epidural. Do I need to stay for the coping techniques part of the class? And of course, my answer is yes, because we all need good coping techniques, even if we know that we're planning a epidural, if you know a planned cesarean is in your future. These are all coping strategies that you can use no matter what type of birth that you have in mind. And if you're saying, Alice, I don't even know what I have in mind, that is fine too. Probably by the end of the series, you will have a little more of an idea, or you might have a real clear picture of what you're looking for. So the class will be broken up that way. So our how birth works and our coping techniques. Again, by the end of the series, you're going to have a whole toolbox full of coping techniques that I know you'll be able to use for your big day. And I assume there's probably some childbirth educators or doulas in watching as well, which you guys are definitely welcome. I always love to work with and talk to the birth professionals in the group as well. But today, at the end of this day, you are going to know so much about the cervix that you're going to be totally set. Let me share a few things, housekeeping, before we dive in. First of all, if you ever need to reach me, this is my email address. And then a lot of times in class, I will talk about, you can find this here, a link to this, link to that. I tried to do a good job putting those links below the video. Sometimes I miss them. So you might have to check back later and I will add them. You can always email me, but I try to keep everything organized, but sometimes I miss a link here and there. One link I wanted to make sure you knew about is a link to download the topic list. So the topic list gives each night and what we'll be covering at this link. And I did just check a second ago and I don't have it below. So if you're missing the topic list and you want to grab that, go to that URL after class. And then the other thing I wanted to mention now, in case people were thinking about it, is after this 1 hour class, I've started something new where, because there was a request for more practice of our coping techniques. So I'm having a practice session right after this hour-long class. It's a 15-minute practice session. And because not everyone is interested in it, I set it up for members of the channel. So if you're interested in being part of that practice session, and it'll be every time after the class for 15 minutes, it is, you just join the channel in the button below, and it's $2.99 for a month. So if you're interested in that, that's available. Also, the comments are a great way to get your questions into me and let me know if there's any technical difficulties or you can't hear me, see me, any of those questions. And hopefully everybody has some note-taking device out. If you are watching on TV, someone said, I can't interact in the chat if I'm watching on the TV. Totally understand. Or if you want to get on your device and chat that way, whatever works for you. This is your class. And I'm presenting it kind of in a Netflix style bingeable where we're doing it every single day for 2 weeks. I know that some people can't make every single day. So rest assured that we will have, or the replay to each class will be available until the end of March. So if you miss one night and you need to catch up, I got you. You can totally do that. And you can find it on the class directory page, which there should be a link below to that. So, or you can also find, I should have put a banner on, YouTube, childbirthclass.com will take you to the directory to find all that out. Okay, guys, how are we doing? Are we ready to get ready? Are we ready to get ready? Ready to get started to talk about what I think is probably the star of the show when we talk about anatomy and physiology around birth. Real quick, this is how our nights will be set up, like I talked about earlier. Awesome. Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Chloe. Whenever I shout out and hope for feedback, it's so hard if it's quiet. So thank you. Thank you, Chloe. Welcome, and welcome to everybody who just joined. We are getting started on the cervix. We're going to talk about the cervix. The cervix, I feel like it's kind of the star of the show. It's the thing in labor that we talk about a lot. And when you're in labor, there's always a lot of talk about the status of the cervix. What's your cervix doing? Is it doing whatever it needs to be doing fast enough and doing it right? There's a lot of focus on the cervix. So that's why I like to start there. Now, it doesn't tell you everything about childbirth. So don't think that, oh, if I understand the cervix, I got it all. No, but it is, to me, a great place to start. Now, I do want to mention that if you are following along in the book that goes with the course, so if we were in person right now, I would have walked around the classroom and handed out books to you, but we're not. So I have a class kit available that I will throw that link on real quick. But I know a couple people have already purchased the kit and the book. We are doing page 4 and 9 tonight. If you want to reference that later, check that out. And the class kit is at supporting her. And I will not have as many announcements next time. But first class, we've got announcements. So this is a great resource for parents that I've been using I've been teaching childbirth class. I didn't really give a bio, but this is my 10th year being a Lamaze certified childbirth educator and 16th year as a birth doula. And I love it. I really love talking about the cervix. Now, the cervix, I like to give you an idea of what it looks like. But since I can't show you a real cervix, well, I don't want to. I'm going to grab my prop over here. I was looking at my desk preparing for this class back in December, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate how the cervix changes, what a huge amount of change happens to the cervix when we are laboring. And so I want to start off by visualizing the cervix kind of like this charging block. Now, when we are pregnant, the cervix, everything about it, it's set up to keep the baby in, to keep the baby safe, and it really is set up so nicely for that. So the cervix is our exit. It is at the bottom of the uterus. So we've got the uterus where the baby is in, and then at the bottom of the uterus is our exit, how baby has to go through the uterus and get out. And cervix is our doorway. Okay, it's our exit. When we are pregnant, the cervix is thick. Yeah, it's nice and thick. It is closed, so no opening here. No opening. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know about it is pointed actually towards our back. So our cervix is kind of pointed posterior towards our back. Again, all setting this up to keep baby nice and safe inside of the place where it's growing. The other thing about the cervix is that it's hard. Maybe not this hard, but it's nice and hard. So our body is set up to keep baby safe. And yet when it's labor time, we need to change a cervix that looks like this to a cervix that looks like this. I'm going to take our screen off right now. That is a huge change, right? From here to here. Now, if you're wondering what this is, the top of a Chick-fil-A cup. Also, very similar to a cervix that is completely dilated, effaced, and ready for the baby to exit through. You will never look at a drink cup the same way now that I'm showing it as a cervix. And everyone is really quiet in the chat thinking, uh-oh, what's she doing here? She's got an iPhone and a drink cup. So we've got to make a lot of change here in the cervix. Tell me, what's the main thing people ask about the cervix? I thought it was so weird before I had children. I was a computer programmer. I did database programming, worked with a bunch of men. And one of the men I worked with, his wife was pregnant. And another man already had kids. And he said to the coworker, "Is your wife dilated yet? What's her cervix? Is her cervix open yet?" And I was just like totally confused, a little bit horrified. Like, why would they be talking about this? The status of this guy's partner's cervix in the office. It's weird, but we talk about it. And it's the main thing that we talk about the cervix is dilated. Dilated means open. So I know this is larger. Oh, Neil, I like this. That's larger than I thought it would be. Yeah, I agree, right? Our cervix inside, it is larger. You hear about it being 10 centimeters across. That is quite considerable. If this was made out of Play-Doh, sometimes childbirth educators will hand out Play-Doh in class and you have time to change this in Play-Doh to this, you really get a sense of how it has to transform, right? How it has to transform. Okay, so cervix has to do a few things. It's a door. It has a few changes that have to be made. I have a visual I want to show. Let me just pull it up. Okay, so a door, some doors are easy to get through, right? Some doors we just turn the handle and get through. But the cervix, it's really not like that. It's more complicated to get the cervix open. And so I like to think of it, instead of this type of door, I like to think of it as a door with a lock, a specific lock, this lock. And the reason for this is that the lock on this door has 4 different numbers. I like this because our cervix actually has to change in 4 different ways while we are in labor. It doesn't just open. It has 4 different components. And it's important to know this. If you're thinking like, why do I need to know? It's important to know because when we are working, when we are in labor and we get a cervical check, it's helpful to know, in what ways did my cervix change? It's helpful to see that it is a process that has to go through, that is transforming this exit that is thick, that is closed, that is pointed backwards, that is hard. That all has to change to thin, open, soft, and pointed towards our front, from our back to our front. Okay, so think about this padlock. We have to get open. That's the process of labor. We've got work to do. And this is where I'm going to jump into the terminologies. And if you guys let me know in the chat, did anyone watch the homework? I know that if you got the topic list in advance, I sent you a homework or some information on the homework. I have a lot of videos on YouTube right now, 200 plus videos about different topics. And I suggested for homework videos on a few of these topics. Let me know if you watch them. If you watch them, this is going to start sounding familiar, which is good. It's good. I always say if you've heard something once, that's great. If you've heard it twice, it's more consolidated. Okay, so let me know in the chat if you saw any of the homework videos. So these, in our 4 lock visual, these are our 4 numbers. These are our 4 ways that our cervix has to change. Dilation, that's really the easy one because that's what you guys all know. Everybody knows. It goes from closed to open. It goes from 0 centimeters dilated, which is how we measure it, centimeters, to 10 centimeters dilated. I'm doing that. It's not like that. It's like this. Now, if you are wondering, how do they measure that? It's all done by feel. So your care provider, so when I say care provider, that might be your doctor, your midwife, your labor and delivery nurse. They can assess your cervix during a vaginal exam, also called a cervical exam, when they insert fingers and look for the edges to see how open it is. Cervical opening is dilation, is the one we all know about. Thinning is one that you might have heard, you might not have, and that's effacement. So the cervix has to go from hard and thick to nice and thin. And actually, this example isn't even as thin as I want to make it. If you can imagine it just like a paper, just a little if I could just slide that open like a paper thin, that's really what we're looking for. That amount of change in the cervix happens before baby can come out. So effacement is the thinning of the cervix, and that's measured, or we talk about it in percentages. So if it's completely thin, like exactly as thin as it should be, it's 100% effaced. If it's halfway there, 50%. If it's still really thick, 0% effaced. Now, thinning often happens before opening. So it's not uncommon to do a lot of contractions, especially the first time that you give birth. Get a cervical check and say, not open, but you have thinned. Okay. Yes. Alexis, I totally agree. I totally agree. It is amazing how our bodies change in labor. I mean, so much about birth is like totally mind-blowing to try to, when you break it down on how it works. So opening, dilation, effacement, thinning. Position is one that we don't hear as much about. You know, I said it was pointed. Your cervix is pointed towards the back of your body when you're pregnant. Another way to keep the baby safe. As you go into labor, the cervix moves. It tilts. The uterus tilts. The cervix tilts to more of a midline and then an even anterior. So kind of like that arrow kind of moves from back to front. So that's a stage that the cervix has to go through. And then consistency is the reason I put a face is because it's a great way to kind of get an idea of what your cervix feels like at its different phases without being able to actually reach your cervix if you are able to reach your cervix. So everybody out there, take your finger. This is, if we were in class, I could watch you all do it, but now I'm just envisioning. Take your finger and touch your forehead. See how that feels pretty hard? Okay. That would be how the cervix is when it is firm, when the cervix is like nice and safe for the baby. Okay. As the cervix changes its consistency and softens, it's more like our nose. Everybody touch their nose. If you're watching this with your partner, are they touching their nose? I'm watching it alone. I'm alone here, thankfully. I've hidden away all the family. When the cervix is really nice and soft, it's like our lips, really soft. Okay. What do you guys think? Tell me in the chat if you did that. So the cervix does a lot in labor, has this huge change. Let's see. Yay. Okay, good. Good. We got some partners doing it. Kayana says, my doctor told me I'm 1 centimeter dilated, but no effacement. What does that mean? I thought that if you were dilated, your cervix started to change as well as far as effacement. That's a great question. And that is probably a little less common. Sometimes people, I'd be curious to know if you ever had a cervical exam that was 0. Sometimes people sort of live with a little bit of dilation. So that might be your story. Sometimes also, if people have had a baby before, sometimes we'll see that they have a little bit of dilation opening to their cervix without the other changes. So it's a great question. A lot of times, I would say usually it's more common to see more of a thinning than opening at first. So awesome. Okay, good. Partners, everybody's doing our different phases. Okay, so we are going to talk about in our later classes, we're going to talk about contractions and how the cervix, how does all of this happen? You know, what makes this huge change in our cervix happen? So we will get to that. But what I want you to know and just start taking in is that it is a process and there is quite a lot to do. And before we can really push, we need that cervix to have gone through all of those phases. We need, just like that little, the 4 numbers, right, on the lock, we need the dilation number to be open. We need the effacement, we need the position, and we need the consistency. And we don't know which order we're going to do them all, but we've got to get it all done before we can start pushing and get the baby past the cervix and on their way out. Yeah. Rebecca said, oh, your midwife told you the same thing, that sometimes there's a little bit of opening in a cervix after you've given birth. Yeah. Yeah. I like this, Craig. Craig got weird looks from the dog. Awesome. I love dogs. Totally. You're not in labor now, I'm assuming, if you're watching this, but dogs totally know, animals in general know when you're in labor, and they're so cool where they're like looking and checking it out. Okay. I'm taking a quick sip of some tea. If you have water next to you, which if you are creating a baby, you should have some water next to you. Stay hydrated. Okay, so we talked about the cervix, but now I want to take us through some common, I would say, not necessarily misconceptions about the cervix, but common questions that I get and we get in class about the cervix. And if you have a specific question, add yours. But this is where I really love some interaction. So if you want to throw your answer in there in the chat, I love it. Let me know what you think. And you don't have to be right or wrong. I'm going to give you the right answer, but I want to know what you're thinking. Can the cervix change prior to actual, I'm in labor? Can the cervix change? Let me know what you think. So this would be like, in your last few weeks of pregnancy, can anything happen to your cervix? Yes. Okay, great. You guys said yes. Awesome. But no is also a possibility. The cervix can change, but is it necessarily going to change before labor starts? No. Some people start labor with a cervix that has really changed, that already has some dilation, positional change, soft, all of that. Other people start labor with a thick, closed, hard posterior cervix. So what is going to be something that sometimes frustrates people when I teach childbirth class, anyone teaches it, but childbirth is so different, and how our bodies work is it's such a whole spectrum and a whole variety. So we can have one person be 4 centimeters dilated, 80% effaced before and soft and anterior, and they're still not in labor. And then we can have another person that is 0 centimeters, 0% effaced, hard cervix, and go into labor. So it's a whole different, it can be different for everybody, which sometimes can be hard when you're learning about how is it going to work, or you're thinking about how your own labor is going to work, right? By the way, if you are finding anything during this whole class helpful, even just one little thing, will you hit that like button, because it helps other people find the video. And it also is just pretty cool to get them to hit, actually smash the like button would be what my sons would say. So, okay, question number 2. Can the cervix predict when labor is going to start? So this is a question, especially if you watched my, one of the homework videos was about cervical exams prior to labor. You already know the answer to this, but can the cervix predict when labor can start? Can your care provider, again, when I say care provider, I say it because some people that are watching go to an OB, some people might have a family doctor, some people might have a midwife. So can your care provider check your cervix at 39 weeks and say, yeah, you're going to go tomorrow, or it's going to be a long time? I see some answers that are different. Not everybody has that one defined. I like this. Alexa says, I feel like I want to say no. You want to say the right answer, and it is no. Oh, Neil says it depends. You know what? It's actually no. It actually is no. Because while what can happen when you get a cervical check is you can find out that your cervix has been changing or that it hasn't been changing, but it really means nothing. It doesn't mean anything as to when labor is going to go. So if you haven't watched that video, there is a video that I put together about getting a cervical exam. And I want everyone to be super, if there's one takeaway that you take from this class that maybe if you didn't know this, please hear that one. that the cervical exam in that 36, 37, 38 week, 39, whatever, appointment that you'll have doesn't really tell you it can't really give you any information. And I'm going to tell you that it can mess with your mind too, because what might happen if you go into your provider and they're like, you are 2 centimeters dilated, you're 80% effaced, your cervix is really getting ready for labor. Okay, so then you get home and you like call your family and maybe you're like, I'm telling work I'm not coming in tomorrow because I'm going to be in labor, and you get your mind ready to go into labor. And then sure enough, a whole week passes, you go back to your care provider and they're like, yeah, it hasn't really changed much. Oh, well. And then you go another week. I have seen it. I've seen people go 2 weeks past this day when their care provider told them they thought they were going to go into labor. Those are the longest 2 weeks of their lives. Can you guys imagine that? Long. And I've also seen the flip side, which sometimes feels better for people, where they go into the doctor and I think someone said, it's my luck, I'm going to be 0, 0, 0. Yeah. And they're like, no, labor or cervix is doing nothing. Maybe they even pull it out of the wall. They're like, this is your cervix, right? That would be really funny if that happens to anybody. I can't imagine. But if you have a thick cervix, not dilated, totally closed, it doesn't mean that your body might be ready and go into labor that night. I have also seen it. I have, as a doula, I've had a phone call from a client, totally upset. Oh, I haven't dilated at all. I can't believe it. It's going to be forever. And then middle of the night, I get a call from them. I'm thinking, what is going on? Sure enough, time for labor. So that being said, if it isn't information that's going to help you or help you make a decision, then you might not be ready or wanting to have a cervical exam during those last few weeks. Something to think about. Oh, Alexis, I don't like this unpredictability. I need structure. That is, that welcome to day one. Day one, I am just laying it out for you. Labor is different for everyone. You're going to know a whole range of what can happen. So you're going to feel better about what's going to happen if you see it happen. But as far as predicting it all, yeah. But it is a great setup for parenting. Okay. It's a great setup for parenting because no structure sometimes in parenting. So yeah. Okay. Oh, this is a good question, Jessica. And I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody questions and stuff. I love that there's an active chat. That's so great. What's causing the dilation and effacement for weeks? Contractions they don't feel. Yeah, contractions that you don't feel. So some people have some contractions and tightening that they just don't have any sensation. They're just, maybe they feel it and it's like nothing. Maybe it happens while they sleep, that it's just so light. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, let's go. I have a few more. Does the cervix open at a steady pace? I need your answers. Put your answers in the chat. Let me know. Now, if you're watching this on replay, which, I said they'll be available through the end of the month, please let me know in the chat or in the comments that you are watching. Maybe do a hashtag childbirth replay or something fun like that. Let me know where you're watching it or any details. It would be great to hear from the replay people watching it too. So, okay. While I was talking about the replay people, I got lots of information, lots of answers back to my question. And no, you guys are great. So you already know that. You know it. It doesn't open at a steady pace. It's exponential. I like that. Craig says, I know, but no, I bet it's exponential. So it's not exponential, but it does hit a point where it tends to open faster and make more progress per time than normal. So usually the first 6 centimeters out of 10, it's usually slower, more unpredictable, not steady. Once we hit about 6 centimeters, and we'll talk about phases of labor in another class. Actually, I'm looking at it. We will probably talk about that in class 3, more in depth. But once we hit about 6 centimeters, we do tend to see more change for the amount of time. Again, not always. But what I want the takeaway from this to be is that if your care provider is using language like, we like to see a centimeter per hour, that's really old. That's way back. That's not based on evidence. And one of the main things as a Lamaze childbirth educator, we really like to teach evidence. We like to go to research. We like to have our facts. We want our students to walk out and be able to talk to their care provider with like, nope, this is actually what research says. And the 1 centimeter an hour concept is still heard at the hospitals sometimes. I know I've heard it as a doula. And I, kind of have to talk to my clients and say, it's not research based. So, yeah, it is something to file away. Okay. Great. I like this, Dawn. We're all doing a great thing, informing ourselves. Better to be informed so that we'll be prepared for the unpredictable. I was listening to this awesome podcast today about how to build confidence in something that you've never done before. And of course, whenever I'm listening to things like this, I always put it on, how does this apply to childbirth class? I was like, this is exactly childbirth class. You guys attending these classes, learning more about what's going on, doing the reading, asking questions, talking to your support person, talking to your partner, you are gaining confidence for something that is unexpected, unpredictable. But isn't it going to feel great to come in to labor with confidence and calm? That's what we're going to do in these classes. Okay, last one. And then we will close the door on the cervix for now. Are cervical exams prior to labor necessary? So I touched on this a little bit. So I probably gave it away. Let's be honest. I probably did. I already see a couple answers. No. Yes. Great. Yes, they're not necessary. Now, question I always get from people. My care provider says at the 37-week appointment, we're doing a cervical exam. Two things I want to share with you. One, if you want that cervical exam, do it. Okay? Do it. Not totally, you have the right. But if you don't want it, how do you have that conversation with your provider? Right? You might say, I'm not really interested in a cervical exam this time. You might just not get undressed. And then when they come in to do the exam, you could say, I wasn't really interested in a cervical exam this time. Was it necessary? Did I need it? So yes, if it has an effect, so not necessarily on a C-section, Alexis, and we'll talk a lot about cesarean birth as well. But if there was a decision point that needed to be made, and usually that decision might be around inducing labor, whether it's a good time to induce labor if they're thinking about it, then that's a different type of situation, right? If they're saying, hey, we need to do the cervical exam because that'll help us make these decisions. Sure. But if it's just, we're going to do the cervical exam and you're like, I don't really want it. Okay, that's cool. Again, this is if you are not wanting one, but they aren't necessary because your body is going to go into labor, whether or not someone checked it to see what it was, right? Or they'll decide on an induction, but the checking of it, again, doesn't predict it. Whew. How are we feeling about cervix? The cervix. Are we ready to close the door on the exit of cervix? I hope that you had some good takeaways and you are feeling a little bit more confident in the cervix and knowing a little bit more about if you had a takeaway or one thing that you feel like you are going to share with a friend, maybe not share with a friend, but you would, please let me know in the chat. Awesome. Great. Yay. Okay. Rebecca says, I'm being induced at 39 weeks, but they will not schedule the induction until my cervix is favorable. Yes. So Rebecca, what that means, and you probably know since you're using the term, favorable means that those locks are getting closer to being opened. That hopefully your cervix has changed position a little, that there's been some softening, that there has been some opening, that there has been some thinning, and that is more likely to have a favorable induction. Now, if you are wondering, I have lots of induction questions, not you, Rebecca, necessarily, because I know that you have been a member of the classes, some of the previous classes, but we are going to go in depth into induction on class 8 and 9. So induction, I think, is a really important topic. Also, I've got to do a shout out, and I have a new, hold on. I'm trying to upgrade the class a little bit from December, and I have a new sound effect that if I get a super chat, which I see a super chat. Ooh, I should have done that at the same time. That was next time. That's going to be so smooth. Thank you. Thank you for the super sticker, actually. If you have never been on a live YouTube before and you have no idea what a super sticker is, I will explain that in just a second. I'm looking at, thank you, Crumbers Peanuts. That was awesome. Very helpful. Looking at some takeaways. Ready to close the cervix. Nice. Yay. Okay. The consistency on the face trick. Tiffany says she's being induced at 38 weeks. Yep. Sometimes they induce for medical reasons. They already get them scheduled. Great. O'Neill says a visualization of how big the cervix gets. You're never going to look at that large. I'm not sure this is a large. These drink cups these days are so huge, right? This is probably like a kid size or something, but right. Awesome. Okay. Great. I love it. Okay. So now we are going to jump in to our next topic, our next part of class, which is one of my favorites, and one of my favorites. I say that a lot. I wanted to share at this time, again, if you found anything helpful, just a nice, friendly reminder to hit that like button. Also, if you are wondering how to support this class, it is a free class, which I love. And any kind of support trying to get out to people, likes, shares, subscribes, super chats. And I wanted to answer this because last time people wondered, there's a little thing next to the chat that you can do a super chat, and that goes to support the channel. Not necessary, but now you have the info. Let's jump into our coping strategy. Now, it is this coping strategy, I have been calling it this for a long time. So you might, if you take another class, like if you take a hospital-based class and you say, oh, one of my favorite strategies is limp and loose in labor, you might not necessarily get the same reaction. Like people might not know what you're talking about. But limp and loose in labor is a series of actions that I like to recommend to help you stay loose. Now, if you were thinking about, we've got to open up this cervix, right? We don't want to keep our body tight and closed, right? When our contractions come, this is not an opening look. Does this look like something is going to open? Are we opening anything? No. But if we have a body that's loose and limp and open, that is going to be more conducive of opening the cervix. So that's what I want to dive into. Let me pull up on my secondary screen. Give me 1 second to go over there. Oops. Let me close. You guys talk amongst yourself. What do you think about loose, limp, and loose to start? Technical difficulty. We're getting close. I see it. I see where I want to go. Okay, we're there. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Chloe, for sharing. Okay. What I have pulled up is my visual for limp and loose in labor. Again, these are coping techniques that I want you to think about that you're learning and you're going to put in this big virtual toolbox. So when labor starts or when you're dealing with childbirth in any way, you will have things that you can pull out and try. Okay? So being loose in labor is so important. And there are next time you watch a birth video on YouTube or heaven forbid, watch a birth on TV, like a dramatized birth, they're horrible. But you will often see these images of not loose, so tense. So think of like sitting in the hospital bed and people are like grabbing the rails, right? They're grabbing the rails almost like they're on like a roller coaster, like bracing themselves. Other things you might see is those legs, right? Like clamped together, but clenched. Even like you see like tight hand holding, tight. All of these are tense areas of our body that I want to teach you to not be tense. I want to teach you 8 different tips I'm going to go through each of them. And this is our interactive time of the class that if you are sitting, I encourage you to stand up, maybe move around. If you are not the person giving birth, if you're the support person, you have to try these techniques too, because it is the best way to help your partner not feel silly. Because I'm going to teach you techniques that are going to feel silly. And number one, all of these, you probably already see a horse on the screen. So you're going to feel a little silly here. But being able to try it out and learn it, both pregnant person and support person, is such a huge benefit. Okay, the other thing I want to let you know is that I am showing you this is a handout that is included in the kit that I talked about. So with the book, and also you get an awesome fan, especially support people can fan during labor. You get these 2, and then you get the handouts that I'm going to talk about, and that's all $19. Okay. Let's talk about the first one. Number 1, open your mouth and let your jaw hang. Everybody's doing that. I can just see you. My kids don't like this. I have 2 girls, 2 boys. The boys are more of the video game players. And I like to say this is kind of their playing the Nintendo Switch face. Now, anybody carry their tension in their jaw? If you're someone who clenches your jaw or carries tension in your jaw, this is going to be really the one for you. Oh, thanks so much, Tiffany. Thank you. Yay. Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, while I was doing my super chat, do you guys try it? Let your mouth hang. Easy. That one's easy. Second one, also easy. Shake out your arms and hands. Okay? Easy. Now, this is, now I hope there's anyone else slobbering. I like that. Shaking out your arms and hands. These, if you are in labor and you're finding yourself tensing up, support people, you just look at your partner and you go, and you do it. And they look at you and they're like, oh, that's right. I've got to do it. Have you noticed that sometimes when you shake something out, you find like, oh my gosh, I was really holding tension there. Right? Right? Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into the horse. Everyone loves the horse. Blowing horse lips is a great way to just all the tension in your face. It also kind of breaks the mood of just like seriousness and like stress. I will say if you're wearing a mask, so as I've been a doula and I've been supporting people at birth with a mask on, I found it's a little bit harder to do the horse lips with a mask. You might have to move your mask away from your face a little bit. Is everyone, let me know in the chat, is everyone doing horse lips? Horse lips is a great one when you are in labor and it feels like it's like you can't catch, like you kind of like, you can't catch up, right? You're having trouble coping. Great one to just, yes. How many other YouTubers are doing horse lips right now? I don't know. We don't know. Let me know if you guys were doing it. Okay. Yes. Okay. I know. I do it. Alexis says she does it at work. Yeah, I do it. I do it at home too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm doing horse lips. Hey, you got to practice. Number 2, I love. I didn't have. I'm going to pull my chair out just to show you guys on my chair. And I'm going to move this a little bit so that you guys can see. Can you see my chair? Okay. My poor broken chair. Okay. So imagine this is a rocking chair at the hospital or, at your birth center, wherever you're giving birth. When I say hospital, if you're giving birth at home or birth center, just think that either of those, it's hard for me to say it all. Uh-oh, Valerie's dog thinks you're crazy. Okay, so what a lot of people do when they're in labor and they're sitting in a chair like this is they are like clamped down on there, okay? We don't want that. That's going to hold tension. What we want is hands up. Now, I had a client who was really holding a lot of tension. And I said, during the next contraction, just put your hands up. And she was on the rocking chair. So contraction comes and she was like, ooh, ooh. She kept wanting to. And then and after about 3 of them, she got the hang of it and was like, ah. So palms up. Even if you just leave your palms up on your lap, it just helps release that tension. Again, why am I teaching you guys all this? Do you remember? Let me know in the chat. Why is it important to not have that tension, not have that. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Valerie. I love this. Kayana says, that's actually a good exercise for me to incorporate in everyday life. I tell you that when you learn some of these childbirth techniques, you can use them in so many other situations, stressful life situations. You can use them at the dentist if that causes you stress. You can totally do that. Jim, this is a great question. This is a great question. Should I be supporting prior to the push phase and then just let her at it when it's time to push? Or between pushes, should she try to release too? That's a great question, Jim. And we are going to cover pushing in more detail. It has its own full day number on the 10th. So make sure you're there for that. But some of these, when you're pushing, you're of course tension down. So this is a good thing in between pushing of just resting. But these are all strategies from the time that labor starts until pushing. And that's the vast majority of labor. So thank you for that question. I love that you felt comfortable enough in our classroom to ask, even though you felt like maybe you didn't know the answer, which that's why we ask questions. I love it. Okay, for this one, which is our 5th strategy here, is moving our shoulders up and down. Okay, so I am totally someone who carries tension in my shoulders. Like one of my daughters comes over to me and she always puts her hands here to like, okay, you need to push it down. You need to just let it go. So if you just move them up and down, you realize like, oh yeah, definitely. That is a good one. So everybody do that right now. Let me know. Are you also someone, am I the only one that holds tension in my shoulders? You guys nicely answered my question. I said, why am I even teaching you this? Helps open the cervix. That's right. When we're limp, when we're loose, our cervix does a better job at opening, right? We're not fighting against the cervix. Kayana, this is another huge benefit of being limp and loose. Labor hurts less. So when you have tension, you actually experience more pain. And we will talk about that in more depth when we talk about pain and fear and tension and all of that. But yes, opening things up, letting things be loose, allowing it to open, feeling less pain. Yep. Good question. Chris says, are there studies to support these exercises? I am sure there are studies to support the decrease of tension in opening labor. I don't have them like off the top of my head, but I'm glad that you're asking because, again, I said I like to teach evidence research based. So I'll see if I can find that for next class. It's a great question. Yes. Okay, so everybody take a sip if you're watching this, and we're going to go into the next limp and loose in labor tip, and that is to say supportive words. So support person can say things to person in labor like limp and loose, ragdoll, go boneless. I actually have an awesome, hold on, let me grab. I have this awesome little book that one of my friends gave me. You guys know that those like blow up, those like marketing balloons that look like a guy that's like floating around. Think of him. He's boneless, right? He's very limp and loose. Yes. So those, just using those terms are good reminders of like, oh, that's what we're doing. We're limp, we're loose, ragdoll, boneless. Showing it, being that mirror support people, also really, really great. Does anybody notice that we're going to be talking about a butt? Yes, I am talking to you about your butt. I get to talk about all the fun things in labor. Also, thank you, Emil. Thank you, guys. It's so fun. Okay, check in with your bum. I worked with this awesome client one time, and we were laboring. I was laboring at her house with her. She went into the bathroom, and I was kind of standing in her bedroom, I think, waiting for her to get out of the bathroom. And I said, oh, everything okay in there? And she said, yeah, I found that I like the contractions better when I'm clenching my butt. So she was like, kind of giving some counter pressure sort of feeling while she's having this. She was clenching her butt. And of course I was like, no, don't let your butt relax. Think about it. Your cervix is here, right? Your butt's here. We don't need this clenched. We need loose. So check in with your butt. If you are someone who is a butt clencher, you don't have to tell me in the chat. I'll take your word for it. To check in on these places, right? Also, Jim, thank you. The wacky waving inflatable arm tube man. Yes, which is a little bit hard to say than like ragdoll or go boneless, but now I know the proper name for him. In our last class, we talked about the term loosey-goosey. Loosey-goosey is another good one. I love it. Yes. Alexis, if you are laughing, then I'm doing my job because I want this to be a class that's fun, that you're getting knowledge out of it, but it's not boring because you know what I know happens if you're watching a boring class? You turn me off and I don't want to lose you. So I got 13 more nights to keep you here. So laughing is good. Let your butt relax. They'll preach. Love that. Great. Love it. Okay. Last one here on these tips. And that's just like wiggle anything that feels tight. So, hands, jaw, just kind of like, has anybody seen on Instagram any of those awesome videos of people dancing, not pre-labor, not the baby mama dance, You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Let me know in the chat. The baby mama dance. Has anyone done it? What I'm talking about is like people actually like in their hospital gown dancing in labor with their care provider or their nursing team. I love it. Anytime you can just let loose is great. Now, a question I haven't heard in the chat, but I think that you're asking. I also just noticed the time and we're right at an hour. So I love it. Great. And we're at our last one. If you were asking, do you do this in labor or do you do, or like during a contraction or in between? You really would do most of these you're doing in between. Okay. So you're doing them in between. Horse lips is more of a do inside. Okay. Do inside, do during a contraction. Everything else is really in between. So that the contraction comes, you're in that limp, loose state. I love it. Okay, yes. Good question. Alexa says, do you have to be in bed during labor? No, and we're going to talk about that bed. Kiana knows what I'm talking about. Awesome. Valerie says, I want to do it. Awesome. The baby mama dance. Great, great, great. Okay, as a reminder, this handout, if you got the kit, these handouts are your cheat sheets. You print them, you have them on your phone, however you do it, old school or new school, whatever, digital or not, you have them and you can refer back to them in labor. So just a reminder about what you would do with those. We are right at an hour, you guys. And everyone likes a teacher that doesn't end class on time. I forgot, I wanted to show, I'm doing a birth affirmation every class. If you can't see it, which you might not be able to, it says, I release and let go, which goes really nice with our topic today, release and let go. Okay, guys, we have been here for an hour. We have talked about our cervix. Hopefully you have learned 8 limp and loose techniques. As a reminder, right after this, I'm going to put a banner on so it makes sense. If you want to join me for 15 minutes, I hope some of you will be able to join me or interested in, we are going to really practice these limp and loose strategies together for 15 minutes. And you go to this link and you join right below. I don't know, it's somewhere here. There's a little join button and it's $2.99. If you don't see me over there, I will see you here at the same time tomorrow. So if you have any questions, you know how to reach me and the topic list, all the links below. Last thing I wanted to share is I will be putting together homework / pre-work videos that I feel like go well with the class that you might want to take advantage of, and they'll always be below the videos. So trying to keep it all organized for you guys so you can get the most out of it. And again, if you haven't liked the video, please do. It really helps. Thanks so much for spending an hour talking about my favorite topic with me, childbirth. And I am already looking forward to class number 2, which we are talking about the baby. We'll get to meet my baby, not real. And we're going to talk about breathing. So really great night tomorrow night. And until then, have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Bye, guys.